Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's video we're going to take it back and step it down a notch because we need to talk about an accident that happened over at Fuji Q. So let's get right into it.
Now get ready, here we go.
Okay, if this is your first time here, make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff downstairs. It does help me out and I do appreciate it. Okay, Fuji Q Highland. It's home to a fourth dimensional roller coaster. This is almost a carbon copy of X2 at Magic Mountain, but it's called Eejanaika, if I remember that correctly. And what they had over there this past week, they had a worker fatality. A 29-year-old employee was working on the ride and then was killed by the ride. A lot of you have contacted me and asked me, it's like, am I going to do a video on this? What's my thoughts on it? And I wanted to do a video. I didn't want to release it too close after the accident. This is in no way, I'm not trying to capitalize or anything off of this. It's a very bad circumstance. It's something that in the industry, nobody ever wants to happen. The worst thing you can do is go to work one day and not come home from something that happened at work. It's one of the reasons why we have such rigorous safety standards throughout the entire industry. That's why here in the US we have OSHA regulating a lot of standards and everything to keep workers safe, to make sure everyone goes home the way that they came into work with all their eyes, fingers, toes, everything intact, including their life. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the family of the worker who lost their life on the ride. So what do we know about this? We don't know a whole lot. I honestly have waited a handful of days trying to see if more information was going to come out, and honestly there hasn't been anything as of yet. It's midway through the week after the accident. I figure this video we probably release about a week from now. Just wanted to give it some time. We know that the ride was down all day undergoing inspections. They were servicing the ride, and now the way they wrote it, I can't tell if it was a translation issue going from language to language or what it might be, but it seemed like the ride was down for a planned inspection. Now, that's a fourth dimension roller coaster built by Aerodynamics, and it's very close to the one that happened out at Magic Mountain. The two are they're a very similar layout, but there's differences between them. The one at Fuji Q was the later revision model, so X2 at Magic Mountain was the first one. Fuji Q got the later revision, which had a lot of updated things in there. They reworked the train, they reworked spots on the tracks, they smoothed some things out, some basic stuff. So what happened in this accident? Well, they were doing an inspection of some sort, whether the ride was down or whether it was just undergoing a weekly maintenance issue, I'm not 100% sure on. But the ride was undergoing inspection and they said they had 11 people working on the ride. So it's like, okay, so I had an entire crew of people there, and then they said the train moved unexpectedly and a worker was basically run over by the train. This is really bad stuff. But I can see with a ride like this exactly how something like this probably happened. So let's try to think about the scene of what's happening there at the ride, and maintenance is there working on it. I'm assuming it's a normal inspection. It's something where they had to take all the seats apart, do stuff like that, and they're doing lots of service work to it that can't be done on a normal time frame. For a long time, X2 at Magic Mountain was also being shut down one day during the week so they could do lots of maintenance to the ride. So maybe this is a full shutdown day, or maybe this is just a late opening because of some sort of inspection or maybe even problem with the ride. Not quite sure there. But so we paint the picture. We've got the train sitting in the station. It said the entry station. So that one, to my understanding, it's kind of like X2 where it has an entry station and an exit station, or entry and then loading. So you come in first and you would unload at that station, then move forward and then load at the next one. That's kind of what I understand about it. So the train was sitting further towards the back of the station, and that's where they were working on it. Now, a crew of 11 people on a roller coaster is a lot. That's a lot of people. Like, man, there's just people everywhere. But on a ride like that one that is so big and there's a track dividing the two sides to where you can't just easily cross through the train and walk to the other side. It's a huge thing. I mean, the trains for X2, they weigh 64 tons. That's a lot. The basic roller coaster weighs about 14 tons. So, yeah, those things weigh a lot. I don't think that one over there at Fuji-Q has had the modifications that X2 had. They did a lot of modifications to X2 to make it lighter. And I think that one having the smaller coaches, I don't think they modified that one. But you never know, because that modification Magic Mountain did was not something that Arrow did. It was something that Six Flags did. So they are definitely two different machines. They're not the same thing anymore. So we have 11 people working on it. While you're working on a ride, the manufacturer always states that the ride needs to be locked out. It always needs to be locked out. No matter what you do, it's got to be locked out. This is one of those little areas that maintenance workers especially love to not do all the time because it takes a lot of extra time. And then you do things where you can't necessarily lock the ride out. What type of scenario would be like that? Well, if you're working with restraint communication, where you might have to be in there physically adjusting restraints, where you'd have all the seat backs taken apart, you'd have sensors that are loose that you're trying to manipulate the height on to make sure that when the restraint gets to a certain area, the indicator turns on, and then that has to communicate through the slip rails and then back to the controller. Well, you can't do any of that if the ride's off. The ride has to be on. So all the time we would work on the rides with them on. Now, is this like chain running and the ride's ready to dispatch? No. They're typically sitting on in like a manual mode, but you typically have someone standing around the panel when you're doing like restraint work, watching indicators and things like that. And you would say, your light would turn green on your little restraint proximity sensor you're working with, and then you would ask, is it green now? And they go, yeah, it's green there. It's like, okay, and then you could verify that it's communicating back to the panel. Okay, so you have 11 people doing 11 projects all over the place. And then what happens is that someone eventually said, I need to move the train. So they said, okay, everyone stop what you're doing, move away from the train, we need to move it. Now, a lot of times stuff like this is done when you're working with wheel carriers, hitches, and things like that. Things that are down towards the inside of the track in that area. If you look at the hitch assemblies and stuff like that, that fourth dimension coaster, that stuff is buried inside the track really tight. So it's not the easiest thing to work on. So if I was working on a hitch, I might be right next to a set of booster wheels. And I'm like, I can't do what I need. I need this train 3 feet forward, or I need it 3 feet backwards or something like that. And it happens all the time with rides like that. It's like, oh, okay. So you go over, you turn the ride on, you switch it into manual mode and get it all fired up. Maybe it might already be in manual mode, but you do enable, and then you just say, move the train forward, and the train just slowly creeps forward. Okay, it's not a big deal. When I'm working in a station with a crew of people, it's actually really simple to do, because I'll be sitting there going, oh, I need to move the train, and I tell the whole crew, hey, I need to move the train. I'm right there. I'm with everybody. The crews I'm used to working with is 2 to 3 people. That's it. Not 11. 11 is a ton of people. So you say, well, you could still do the same thing. It's like, yes, you can. So here's the way I would do things. I would say, hey, I'm going to move the train. Everyone back away from the train. And then everyone goes, okay, back away from the train. And then I have to pick, if I'm operating the ride, if I'm going to move the train myself, I'm going to pick 2 people that I trust, and I'm going to say, hey, person A, walk down the train on this side and look in between the coaches and make sure someone didn't leave an airline or a wrench or something draped over the track, something that's going to damage the train. It's make sure none of that happened. Okay? Person B, do the same thing. Since we're talking about this fourth dimension coaster, you can't just, like most coasters, you can't just cross the track really quick and then go over there. They might be able to, maintenance guys, yeah, you can jump up and hop over stuff and climb over to the other side and walk down there. But it's a little more complicated because there's so much in the way. There's barriers, there are all sorts of stuff to prevent people from jumping over in that track. So I would say 2 people go down each side of the train and make sure nothing is in the way of the train. And then they would walk down that side of the train, and then they would stand typically towards the back. And I would say clear, and they would say clear, and they give me a thumbs up. And they go clear, and I get both clears, and then I'd move the train forward. And it's like, okay. And then once I did that, I would probably hit an E-stop or a ride stop, and then we would go back to work on the train. Now, this isn't what manufacturers want. This isn't what engineering wants either. Engineering wants to make sure that if I were to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to move the train, and then we're going to go back to work on it, engineering wants to make sure I hit the E-stop, the emergency stop. And then, from there, we progress to lockout, tagout. Now, I might need parts of the ride on for air pressure and things like that, but I could probably do like an E-stop lockout or a ride motion lockout and turn the switch, and then everyone, all 11 people in that case, would have to go put their individual lock on that switch to make sure that the thing doesn't move. Okay, this is the process, this is the standard thing like I would be used to doing. And this is especially necessary when you're doing things that you can't really control, you can't see. Because when you can see the entire train and you can see all aspects of it, and you could easily look and tell if something is standing there or if someone's in the way, or if I could just quickly walk down the train and look myself, it's typically not a huge deal. But it's definitely one thing people always want to make sure the ride is locked out. So I'm guessing here, and this is just speculation, I'm guessing here what happened is that they said, okay, everyone off the train, I've got to move it. And everyone backed away from the train. And then with 11 people there, if I was there, I would be the 11th person. So I'm looking out and I'm looking at 10 people standing around. That train is huge. I'm seeing people way over to this side. I'm seeing people way over to that side. And I just ask, is everyone clear? And then I probably get, yeah, everyone's clear. Okay, well, the thing is that maybe the 11th person, the person who was unfortunately killed, maybe that person showed up unexpectedly during the middle of everything and they just went to work. Maybe it was one of those things, this happens all the time. This is where that 11th person was working on something. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to say they were working on a hitch. They were tightening a hitch up down there in the very center of the track. And that person said, man, I need another tool. I'm going to go get another tool. And told the person, someone close by, hey, I'm going to go get another tool. And I said, okay. And then that person left. And then moments later, that person was walking down the train and realized the tool they needed was sitting right there. And they're like, oh, there's that tool that I needed. Cool. And they turned around and walked right back and got back into the track doing what they were doing. So now the people around them just acknowledge that that person was leaving to go get something. And then maybe shortly after this, they said, hey, we need to move the train. And everyone stepped back and they said, where is everybody? It's like, everyone's here. Where'd that 11th person go? They went to go get the tool. You see how you can just, these disasters, they just kind of unfold like this. It's actually quite common, unfortunately. So they said, okay, that guy went to go get the tool. So he's not here anymore. And then they moved the train. Now, when you move a 60-plus ton train, it doesn't care what's in the middle of it. It will move. And unfortunately, there was someone, it sounds like this person was laying over the track, which kind of told me that they were from the platform, leaned over towards the inside, working on something in the middle of the train. There's wheel carriers, there's pivot, there's the linear gear around that area that actually makes the seats rotate and stuff like that. There's the hitches down there. So I like to think of stuff towards the very center, which is the reason why you would drape yourself over something, would be to get towards the very center where the hitch assembly is. So I'm thinking they were working on a hitch. And then depending on which speed they hit, it did what, that person might have been working in or around that area, and they might have only gotten a click of the brakes for those motors unlocking just momentarily. Now, this isn't a brake like pneumatic brakes where you hear them open. This is just a faint electromagnetic clunk that happens to that motor right before it turns on and starts moving. Now, if you're thinking about these trains as a dispatch, You say, well, they don't dispatch very fast. Couldn't that person just move? When you're in there doing something and you're draped yourself over the track and you got your arms all the way down on the inside, you can't just easily spring back out of that situation. It's a bad situation to be in if the train were to suddenly unexpectedly move. And again, the only person it unexpectedly moved on was that 11th person. Everyone else, it sounds like, knew it was moving because there was no one else involved with this. I don't think the machine, again, there's been no official release like this is what happens. This is all just speculation on my part, and I'm definitely not trying to be disrespectful at all. Somebody lost their life. This is a hard topic. It's one of the worst topics, right? But it is one of those things that when this stuff happens, it's like a lot of other people knew something was happening and they moved out of the way. It's just one person didn't hear it. They didn't understand it. One of the things I don't like at all, that a lot of places you can see it all the time, are earbuds. Earbuds, people use them all the time for everything now. Apple, all those other companies make noise canceling earbuds, and those are one of the things that will really get you in trouble on a job site where you need to communicate and you need to be able to hear things and audible warnings like, hey, I'm about to move the train. Everyone stop, everyone back away. If you have earbuds in, if you've got music going, even if you don't have much music going, maybe you're listening to an audiobook, but that's noise canceling everything around, you're not going to hear it. Really sad to say. And now a person's dead over something along those lines. That's what I think happened. It was, you boil it down to a simple, they didn't follow lockout tagout procedures, probably. Now, I can't say what that ride has for procedures. I just know, like, the company and parks and stuff I've worked for, there would have been like a motion lockout where you can lock it out and say that we're going to stop the motion so the thing can't move, which is what you want. But not all places do that. A lot of places simply just say, yep, go ahead and work on it, and they don't really have rules in place or anything else. But that's not the way the industry's going. The industry's going towards full motion lockout and stuff like that. Again, for troubleshooting and repairs, sometimes even adjustments, those things have to be bypassed. I wouldn't say bypassed. Those things have to be not used so you can have it on. But every time you take a piece of equipment out of that safe state, it becomes very dangerous to work on. And you have to have the utmost respect and attention when you're doing anything like that. I want to say it's all cookie cutter, cut and dry everywhere. Like you can always lock it out and you could always turn it off. You can, but sometimes you need things on. Sometimes you have to have it on, and it makes troubleshooting and adjustments a pain in the butt. But sometimes the pain in the butt is worth it compared to going home at the end of the day. You know, I'd rather have a pain in the butt and go home at the end of the day than try to do something quick and never make it home again to see my family. Anyways, that's my thoughts on what's happened here. Horrible accident. Life has been lost. It's bad all the way around. Don't wish it on anybody. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have seen something else. Searching for things in other countries is hard to do. So let me know if there has been an update that I've missed and it sheds some more light on the information now. I doubt it's going to be the ride malfunction. 99% of the time, it's not the ride malfunction. It's the crew did something, somebody moved it, and now someone's dead. Okay, I think that's enough for this one. I'm Ryan the Ride Mechanic. Stay off the air gates. Bye.